missed this relational aspect that is so clear in scripture, but now brain science and just the loneliness we're experiencing is bringing this to the surface in ways that we've perhaps not seen. Perhaps it was taken for granted in previous generations and they just had it, but technology has caused us to separate our modernity, traveling, moving, all of those things. It was just there. Is that the reason? I mean, why is this happening to us in this moment that we need to even address it?
I think it's more in our face now than ever before because of the reasons that you shared. This is in our faces more. We are faced with the reality of people who are not wanting, to go to church, or people who have a lot of church hurt and all kinds of stuff. And, looking at history, the thing that stood out in church history is a value on knowledge. Just find a value on theology, which is good. You got, like we said, we got to have the doctrine. You got to have your ducks in a row. The part of man that can make good choices, and those are all good things. But what kind of got neglected is what drives the bus, and what drives the bus is the relational stuff that we're talking about. It is the relationship of loving God, of learning that weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. And actually learning that and, being around people that value that. And ultimately, my relational skills are a reflection of just what my family or my community had to work with. And it's not to blame them or shame them. I have very loving parents. I love my family. They just didn't have some of these skills. And again, if I don't have the skills, I can't pass the skills on to my kids. I can't pass the skills on to my congregants. I actually have to learn some of these skills. I do have to work on quieting. I do have to work on building some joy or getting back to joy. Like, these are things we can work on. And if the skill is there, it'll show up. But if the skill's not there, it ain't going to be there. It's not going to show up. Something else will. And so part of it is just helping people learn. There is a way to learn these skills. There is a way to learn to be more relational. And again, being relational doesn't mean we have to talk all the time. It also means we rest together. I can rest and quiet with friends or family and take a breather while we're still glad to be together. So, it's part of it's finding a rhythm. But if the skill is missing, and we haven't really had much of a language for some of this before, thankfully, brain science did provide some language, and then we could say, okay, well, if this is what brain science says, let me look in the Bible. Let me see what scripture has to say, because that's where I'm going to go to, to put any weight on this stuff. And like, oh, wow, joy is in the Bible. And there's a lot of times that joy shows up, and it is a relationship. And okay, what does that mean? But ultimately, if we don't have the skills, one will compensate often in non-relational ways. So I will put more emphasis on information, on good choices. If I don't have certain skills, I will go with whatever I have to work with. And so if I don't have that skill, it will affect those that I serve inevitably. If I don't speak the language, I can't teach you. And so part of this ultimately is, and this is often why this material gets discounted sometimes, because at the end of the day, I have to do something myself. I have to be a steward of my own growth. And understanding, maybe there are some rocks in my shoes that I have to remove. Maybe there is some pain that's hindering me from growing in the ways and maturing in the ways. Or maybe it's just, my family didn't have a certain skill. So my family, we didn't know how to get back to joy from fear. So we just, or shame, we just avoided it, or we got stuck. So part of it is just, I actually can do something and to learn what's missing, or maybe just to strengthen some areas of weakness that just need a little bit of practice. And part of it, we just didn't have the road before to know, how do I do this? And thankfully, when these skills were there, it's because families and communities had them. So back in the day, if you had a family or a community that had these skills, they would show up and they would spread relationally. But now, because of the world that we live in, it's a different world. Families don't live together like they used to. In fact, they, often will move to get away from families at sometimes. So, what happens is where life has changed in some pretty profound ways. And again, there's many good things about technology. I don't bash technology, but it quickly can compensate in some ways. And I turn to technology in a way that I might not otherwise if I actually had the skill.